Chevrolet Malibu came flying through at speeds well above the limit. The driver behind the wheel wasn't slowing down, and this was only the beginning of a very long night. The driver was later identified as 27-year-old Rashamel Howard. Troopers discovered he was a convicted felon, slurring his speech, reeking of alcohol, and yet denying he'd been drinking. Inside the wreckage, they also found a firearm he was not supposed to have. Howard was booked into jail, and this chase became another stark reminder that bad choices at high speeds almost always end one way, hard, fast, and costly. Most traffic stops end with a ticket and a warning, but on the night of February 3rd, 2025, one did not. Trooper Dylan Evans had just pulled over a Dodge Charger that was moving faster than the rest of traffic. At first, the driver, Brandon Williams, played along, acting as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Yet beneath that calm exterior lingered a plan that would turn a quiet roadside chat into chaos across the interstate. The wild run didn't earn Brandon Williams the escape he was banking on. Instead, it left him facing charges ranging from reckless driving to possession with intent to deliver, along with the discovery of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. In the end, the only thing faster than his Charger was the speed at which his luck ran out. On February 16, 2025, Trooper Dylan Evans spotted what should have been a routine traffic violation on Interstate 40. A silver Honda Accord was moving just a little too fast, pushing 86 miles per hour in a 65 zone. It looked like a simple stop was coming, but instead of tapping the brakes, the driver made a choice that would crank this night into overdrive. Within seconds, a calm Sunday evening was about to become a high-stakes chase. The man behind the wheel turned out to be Michael Tate, limping in traffic before being cuffed and sent off for treatment. Inside the car, a handgun sat in plain reach, and the vehicle itself was a mess of fake paperwork and no insurance. Tate's list of charges stretched a mile long, speeding, fleeing possession of a firearm by a certain person, and more. For him, that night ended not in freedom, but in a hospital bed in a jail cell, the kind of destination every runner eventually finds. It was the afternoon after Christmas, December 27th, 2021, and the interstate was just starting to settle into its winter lull. But in Bibb County, one Ford Ranger was breaking that calm at 90 miles per hour. The driver eased up for a moment, but never actually gave in. Instead, it became clear this was going to be one of those moments where a bad decision snowballs into something far worse.
Seven outside. 17 outside.
By the time it was over, the Ford Ranger was on its side, its driver still belted in and looking dazed. Joseph Silas confessed he had been drinking, his voice tinged with worry about his job. Emergency crews cut him free, and he left the scene in custody. His blood test pending, his truck destroyed, and his driving record permanently marked. In the end, the road decided the outcome long before the paperwork did. For Trooper Terrell Pratt, June 27, 2023 was supposed to be like any other day behind the wheel of his patrol unit, but the moment he locked onto a silver sedan barreling down the roadway, he knew his shift had just changed course. What the driver thought would be a quick way out of trouble was about to become a high-speed mistake etched into asphalt. The driver's reckless gamble ended with him on the ground, taken into custody as troopers reminded him just how close he came to costing lives. He now faces charges of fleeing reckless driving and endangering the public. No dramatic escape, no heroics, just a trail of broken metal and bad decisions. It was another harsh lesson in how running from the Arkansas State Police only leads to one destination disaster. July 10, 2025 began with one man making a series of choices that would spiral into chaos. Behind the wheel of a Chevy Blazer, Dustin Kirkendall was already wanted for more than just bad driving. By the time Arkansas State Police joined the chase, he had turned Interstate 40 into a high-speed stage where every second brought more danger. Nobody knew how far he was willing to push it. When it finally ended, the driver was identified as 37-year-old Dustin Kirkendall. Officers discovered open containers and narcotics tied to his wild run, confirming he was under the influence. The chaos left 2 officers contaminated with his blood, forcing an unexpected hospital visit. One night, 2 PIT maneuvers and 1 suspect whose arrogance turned Interstate 40 into his personal circus. June the 1st, 2025 had just tipped past midnight when Corporal Ben Ibarra spotted a gray Honda Accord slicing through the darkness on Interstate 530. 90 and a 75 might not sound like much to the thrill seekers, but for a trooper sitting in the shadows, it was enough to spark attention. When the stop was made, the driver's evasive answers and refusal to show ID felt less like stubbornness and more like someone trying to keep a lid on a secret. And when the air got heavy with that kind of tension, it was only a matter of time before it all snapped.
TBI, it's got Hamilton.
When it was over, the driver, Limon Thompson, and passenger Sharon Bryan were under arrest. Between them sat a loaded 9mm pistol with an extended magazine, a silent witness to the choices made that night. Bryan left with only minor injuries, but Thompson's list of charges was anything but minor reckless driving with injury, fleeing by vehicle, possession of a firearm by certain persons, and more. Whatever he thought he might outrun, the only thing waiting at the end was a jail cell. On May 2nd, 2023, the Arkansas State Police were about to cross paths with a man who had no intention of stopping. Behind the wheel of a red Nissan Rogue was Tigo Caldero, a previously deported felon with a felony immigration warrant hanging over his head and a homicide investigation out of Tennessee. For Caldero, every mile was a gamble, and every glance in the rearview mirror was a reminder of the law that was closing in. Hazen police already had eyes on him, and the question wasn't if he'd make a bad decision, it was how far he'd go when the blue lights lit up.
Come on down, let me get it. Too much traffic. Can't put him right there, we have traffic. We're gonna be stuck. Okay, right now, 40 west still. Got to be about medium for about 110 right now. We got a pit, roll over. Pit, roll over, stand by. Stop here, guys.
Hands, driver! Hands!
When the dust settled, Caldero's run was over, and so were any hopes of slipping away unnoticed. He was taken into custody and booked into the Prairie County Jail on charges of aggravated assault, felony, fleeing, and driving while intoxicated on drugs. ICE also lodged a detainer for his deported felon status and outstanding warrant. Some drivers make bad choices. Caldero made one that guaranteed his day would end in handcuffs. December 4th, 2024 started as just another patrol shift on Macon Road. A Georgia state trooper spotted a silver Toyota Camry weaving in its lane, its insurance status just as shaky as the way it was being driven. When the lights and sirens came on, the driver actually pulled over, at least that is what it looked like. But in the blink of an eye, what should have been a simple traffic stop took a sharp turn into something far more dangerous.
Mile marker 14. Mile marker 14. Clear, take mile marker 14.
The driver, later identified as 18-year-old Kamari Gamble, would not survive the aftermath of that final move. EMS rushed him to the hospital, but his injuries proved fatal. For a teenager who thought running was the best way out, the chase ended as a tragic reminder that fleeing from the law almost always writes its own ending, and it is never a good one. The night of October 14th, 2023 started with flashing radar and a Dodge Charger tearing across Interstate 40 like it owned the road. At speeds topping 120 miles per hour, The car wasn't just fast, it was defiant. Each lane change grew bolder, each swerve riskier, and every motorist nearby suddenly found themselves unwilling extras in a stunt they never signed up for. But on highways like this, every stunt has a breaking point.
I don't work for Tennessee.
Get what? Tennessee governor will be on your ass. I swear to God.
27 CDI,
You're gonna
40
get
West
Show me where
Mountain.
you're
lay down.
Show me
MLK, I don't know the exact location.
Get over here
He's
and lay
kind
down.
of quiet on the radio.
Lay down.
man. Thank you.
Lay down.
Thank you for being a man.
Lay down.
Thank you for being a man.
Now, lay down.
I'm gonna lay down. What am I doing?
Stop resisting.
The driver, later identified as DeAndre Brown, fought commands struck at a trooper's arm and ended up tasting volts from a taser before finally going down. Brown was charged with driving while intoxicated, fleeing in a vehicle, and assault, with plenty more stacked on top of that. His passenger, Tamara Brandon, also walked away with her own set of charges. In the end, all the bravado in the world could not outrun flashing lights and a trooper who refused to back down. June 8, 2025 started like any other day in Dayton, Ohio, but one driver was about to make sure it didn't end that way. Near Steve Whalen Boulevard, a vehicle caught the eyes of officers for all the wrong reasons. The erratic swerves, the disregard for lanes, the way it clawed for speed, it was enough to set every alarm bell ringing. When they realized it matched the description of a car tied to an earlier theft alert, the calm was over. A routine patrol had just turned into a race against a driver willing to gamble with everyone's safety.
We're going to be possible at Main Street, Jefferson Street exit. We're going to be taking the on-ramp to Main Street, Jefferson Street.
In the end, both men inside that car would see the inside of a jail cell, the driver facing felony charges, the passenger booked for warrants that had been waiting for him. What could have been a quiet Sunday in Dayton turned into a test of how far someone will go to avoid a pair of handcuffs. Spoiler alert, not far enough. Blue lights danced in the night sky over Arkansas on March 20th, 2025, chasing down a driver who refused to yield. The man at the center of it all was 54-year-old Joe Versey, pushing his luck from Poinsett County into Crittenden County, with a trail of squad cars behind him. What began as reckless driving had escalated into a full-speed test of patience and skill. Each mile narrowed the gap, and each passing second brought more officers into the fold. The road ahead would decide just how this story ended, and it wouldn't be pretty. Through the crackle of radios and shouts across the median, the suspect's words cut through the chaos. He had a weapon. Every officer within earshot knew the stakes had just shifted, and the tension in the air was thick enough to stop anyone cold.
Get out or get tight! Shit, man! We gotta go in.
When Versey reached toward the weapon he'd threatened to use, officers made the call no one wants to face. The shots fired ended both the standoff and the danger, with the suspect declared dead at the scene. Prosecutors later ruled the response was within the law, a decision that underscored just how high the stakes had been in those final moments. March 7th, 2024 started as a routine collaboration between the Georgia State Patrol Crime Suppression Unit and Atlanta Police. They were on the lookout for a white Ford Fusion tied to a recent vehicle theft with ground units and the Phoenix helicopter scanning the city. When the car was spotted in a West Atlanta parking lot, things seemed calm enough until the driver decided compliance was off the table. The moment the emergency lights flicked on, the peaceful afternoon turned into a high-stakes gamble on city streets.
Right on the Virgin, right on the Virgin.
Clear right on Merton.
Coming up to I-20, going I-20.
Clear 20, going on I-20.
Down to 20,
Clear eastbound 20. Clear on pit.
Another pit.
Clear second pit.
Bailey! Bailey!
The driver was later identified as Juwan Jackson, and his run from the law didn't stop when the car did he bolted on foot, making a break through brush fences and train tracks. Even K9 Loco got a piece of the action before Jackson was finally cornered and taken into custody. He was charged with reckless driving, felony fleeing obstruction, and driving on a suspended license on top of existing warrants. Sometimes the fastest way to lose everything is to think you can outrun everyone. July 10th, 2025 started like any other late morning on SR 408 until a flash of gray caught a trooper's eye. That Mercedes GLC was not just moving fast, it was eating up pavement at a rate that made every other car on the road look like it was parked. Behind the wheel sat a driver who clearly had no intention of slowing down for anyone. The trooper moved in to make the stop, but what came next turned a routine traffic stop into a full-throttle showdown.
Single 4 at Pine Hill.
The driver, identified as 33-year-old Darius Demetrius Lowe, made one last attempt to escape on foot, but that sprint ended in handcuffs. Lowe, already on inmate release for a previous fleeing case, was found with 27 fentanyl pills, nearly $4,000 in cash and marijuana inside the Mercedes. His bid for freedom not only failed, it stacked up a fresh list of charges that will keep him off the road for a long while. Some drivers run thinking they can win. Lowe just learned the hard way that the odds are never in their favor. It was a normal day in Eco, Arkansas, the kind where most people are thinking about lunch plans, not high-speed pursuits. Corporal Todd Williams was simply doing his job, initiating a traffic stop on a vehicle that gave him reason to pause. The man behind the wheel, later confirmed to be Carlos Smith from Lamar, had other ideas. Instead of pulling over, he punched the gas and left that quiet roadside in a cloud of urgency.
Oh, they have the radio. Still driving southbound, 167.
Hey,